The sound of my wife's voice was coming from every corner of the room, but she wasn't actually speaking. She was sitting 3 feet away from me at our mahogany dining table, her fork frozen halfway to her mouth, her face turning a shade of gray I didn't know human skin could achieve. The audio echoing through our high-end ceiling speakers was unmistakable. It was the sound of Elena in our guest bedroom, and she wasn't alone. The rhythmic thumping, the breathless whispers, and the name she was moaning, a name that definitely wasn't mine, shattered the silence of our dinner party like a sledgehammer through a window. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand why I turned our dream home into Elena's personal nightmare, I have to take you back to where the cracks first started to show. From the outside, we were the couple everyone wanted to be. We'd been married for 8 years, living in a beautiful, custom-built home in the heights of Silver Ridge. Elena was a high-end interior designer, and she was obsessed with what she called the seamless lifestyle. She spent nearly $40,000 turning our house into the ultimate smart home. Everything was connected. The lights, the locks, the climate control, and especially the safe haven security system. She loved that system. She used to brag to our friends at cocktail parties about how she could monitor the entire house from her iPad, how the geofencing would turn on the fireplace the moment her car turned into the driveway. "It makes me feel protected," she'd say, leaning into my shoulder, "like the house is watching over us." I believed her. I loved our routine, the way the house would wake us up with gradual light and the smell of pre-programmed coffee. We had our Saturday morning ritual at that little French bakery on 4th Street, where she'd always order a double-shot espresso and a lemon tart, and I'd pretend I wasn't bothered by the crumbs on the leather seats of my car. It was a good life, or at least it was the life I thought we were building. That should have been my first warning. The first real crack appeared on a Tuesday in October. I'd come home early because a meeting had been canceled, and as I pulled into the driveway, the home mode didn't trigger. Usually, the porch lights would flicker and the front door would unlock automatically as my phone synced with the hub. But that day, the house stayed dark and dead. When I walked inside, I found Elena in the kitchen, looking startled, almost frantic. She told me the system was glitching, and she'd had to manually override some of the sensors in the back of the house to keep them from tripping. I didn't think much of it at the time. Technology fails, right? But what came next was so much worse. A week later, I noticed something odd in the Safe Haven app on my own phone. I'm not a tech guy. I'm a civil engineer. I deal with concrete and steel. But I know how to read a log. The guest bedroom door sensor was showing active for 3 hours every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon. Now, we never used the guest room. It was Elena's staging area for her design samples. When I asked her about it, she didn't even blink. She told me she was reorganizing her fabric swatches, and the light in that room was better for color matching. If that was all I found, maybe I could have let it go. But then I checked the data usage for our internal network. The guest room had its own dedicated smart speaker and a hidden security camera, part of the nanny cam package Elena insisted on for future-proofing the house. I noticed that the camera in that room was being manually disabled from her device at exactly 1:15 p.m. on those same days. My stomach did a slow, sickening roll. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself that Elena loved this house, loved our life. But that nagging feeling in my gut, the one that feels like a cold stone sitting behind your ribs, wouldn't go away.
I decided to do a little maintenance of my own. I waited until Elena was out for her weekly Pilates class, and I accessed the admin override for the Safe Haven hub. She thought she was the only one with the master password, but she'd written it on a sticky note inside a kitchen cabinet 3 years ago, and I have a very good memory. I didn't find any saved videos. She was smart. She was deleting the clips. But she forgot one thing. The smart speakers in our house have a room-to-room monitor feature designed for parents to listen in on babies. It doesn't record to the cloud. It streams live, but it also keeps a temporary cache of the last 30 minutes of audio for voice command optimization. I sat in my home office, my hands shaking so badly I could barely type, and I accessed the guest room's audio cache. For a long minute, there was nothing but static. And then I heard it. The sound of a zipper, a laugh, a man's voice, deep, familiar. "Is the husband definitely at the site today?" the voice asked. "He's in the city until 6, Elena replied. Her voice sounded different. It wasn't the polished, professional tone she used with me. It was breathless. "We have the whole afternoon. The house is in privacy mode. No logs, no eyes." "I love this smart stuff," the man said. I recognized the voice now. It was Marcus, the lead contractor from the firm Elena worked with. He'd been at our house for dinner. I'd shaken his hand. I'd bought him a bottle of bourbon for his birthday. "It's our own little fortress," Elena whispered. I sat there in the dark, listening to the sounds of my wife betraying me in the room just down the hall from where we slept. I felt a cold rage settle over me. Not the kind that makes you want to scream and break things, but the kind that makes you very, very quiet. I knew exactly what I was going to do, but I had to be patient. I had to wait for the perfect moment to show her just how smart our home really was. I spent the next 3 days acting completely normal. I kissed her goodbye in the morning. I ate the pasta she made for dinner. I even listened to her talk about a new project she was starting with Marcus. She had no idea that I had spent my lunch breaks rerouting the entire audio output of our home system. I created a new scene in the Safe Haven app. I titled it, "The Truth." The opportunity arrived on Friday night. We were hosting a small homecoming dinner for a few of our closest friends, 2 other couples who had been with us through everything. Elena was in her element, wearing a silk dress the color of expensive wine, moving through the candlelit dining room like a queen. Marcus was there too, along with his wife Sarah. That was the cherry on top of the betrayal, the sheer audacity of her inviting his wife into our home while they were using our guest bed as their playground. "The ambiance is just perfect, Elena," Sarah said, gesturing to the soft jazz playing through the speakers. "You really did an incredible job with the automation." Elena beamed, her eyes darting briefly to Marcus. "It's all about creating the right mood. Technology should serve the heart, don't you think?" I stood up, holding my wine glass. "You know, Elena is right. And tonight, I want to show you all a new feature I've been working on, a way to really capture the memories we make in this house." Elena looked at me, a tiny flicker of confusion crossing her face. "David, I didn't know you were messing with the hub." "Just a little optimization," I said, my voice calm, almost cheerful. "I call it the full transparency mode." I pulled out my phone. My thumb hovered over the truth icon. This was the moment. I hit the button. The jazz music didn't just stop. It was cut off by a sharp digital chirp. Then the volume across all 16 high-fidelity speakers in the house spiked to 80%.
The audio I had captured from the guest room 2 days prior began to play. It wasn't grainy. It was crystal clear. The dining room went from jovial chatter to a silence so heavy it felt like the oxygen had been sucked out of the room. The first thing we heard was Elena's unmistakable giggle. Then the sound of Marcus saying, "God, you're so much better than Sarah." I watched Elena. It was like watching a building collapse in slow motion. The color drained from her face, leaving her ghost white. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She looked at the speakers and the ceiling, then at Marcus, then at me. Her hands, which had been gracefully holding a wine glass, began to tremble so violently that red wine splashed onto the white tablecloth like a bloodstain. Marcus looked like he'd been turned to stone. His eyes were fixed on his wife, Sarah, whose face was contorted in a mask of dawning horror. The audio continued. It was graphic. It was damning. It was the sound of 2 people who thought they were invisible, mocking the people they supposedly loved. "David is so oblivious," Elena's voice echoed through the hallway, the kitchen, and the dining room. "He thinks I'm in here looking at carpet samples. He actually believes me." I took a slow sip of my wine, watching the sweat bead on Marcus's forehead. He tried to stand up, his chair screeching against the hardwood floor. "David, turn it off," he croaked. "Why?" I asked, my voice conversational. "Elena said this house was built to protect us, to watch over us. I'm just letting it do its job." Sarah was the first to move. She didn't scream, she didn't throw a drink. She simply stood up, grabbed her purse, and walked out of the front door without looking back. The sound of her car engine roaring to life was the only thing that broke the spell of the recording. Elena finally found her voice. "David, please, it's not, I can explain." Explain what, Elena? I asked, leaning forward. Explain the staging you were doing in the guest room? Or maybe you want to explain how the privacy mode works, because from where I'm sitting, the house has never been louder. She burst into tears, a messy, ugly sob that ruined her perfect makeup. She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. The guests, our closest friends, were looking at their plates, the discomfort in the room so thick you could taste it. One by one, they stood up and left. No one said goodbye. By the time the recording looped back to the beginning, it was just the two of us, in a house that felt suddenly, cavernously empty. Elena was hunched over the table, her silk dress stained, her seamless lifestyle lying in pieces on the floor. I want you out by tomorrow morning, I said. I wasn't angry anymore. I just felt finished. The smart home has already logged your exit code. At 8 a.m., your access to the locks, the accounts, and this front door will be permanently revoked. She looked up at me, her eyes red. Where am I supposed to go? I don't know, I said, standing up and heading towards the stairs. Maybe Marcus has a guest room you can stage. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. It turns out that when you have high-fidelity audio recordings of your spouse and her lover discussing how they're defrauding you, the settlement process goes remarkably fast. I sold that house. I couldn't stand the way the lights would dim at sunset, reminding me of the routines we used to share. I moved to a small place near the coast. No smart hubs, no automated locks, no speakers in the ceiling. Just a simple key and a deadbolt. People ask me if I miss the convenience, the protection of a high-tech home. I just tell them that I've learned the hard way. The only thing technology can really do is show you the things people think they're hiding in the dark. I'm starting fresh now, and for the first time in years, when I walk through my front door, I finally feel like I'm actually safe.